Now for our story. It is Sunday afternoon. Dell Shipley, with Aunt Mary on the seat beside her, is driving her car toward the Lane farm on Willow Road.
This is quite a treat, Dell. Driving in a fancy car like this.
Oh, now this crate isn't so much. It took me all through the war, you know. Did you have a nice visit with David Bowman?
Oh, yes. We're very old friends. Thanks for picking me up, Dell.
Nothing to it. His house is right on the way from the hotel. Oh, gosh. It doesn't seem like only a couple of days since Lily and I came down from Chicago. It seems more like weeks.
I only wish you could stay a week or two.
So do I. But a nightclub doesn't run by itself, you know. If I stayed away too long, things begin falling apart at the Peacock.
I suppose so. No one ever looks after things the way you can yourself. But, Dell, I'm awfully glad you came. Even if we weren't able to work out that plan of mine.
Oh, say, I wanted to tell you about that. Lily and I were talking. I have good news for you.
Good news, Dell. You haven't decided to take over the job anyway, in spite of how Lefty feels?
No, I couldn't do that, Mary. With Lefty not wanting me around, it would be too uncomfortable for all concerned.
Yes, I understand that.
But Lily and I, had another idea.
Oh?
I hated to disappoint you in the first place, Mary. You know that.
Of course I do.
And from a business standpoint, well, I can see where a place like that might make a little money. As we said, Wakefield hasn't a single spot where people can go to eat and see a little floor show, dance to some good music.
No, it hasn't. Unless you count the few roadhouses there are outside of town. And they certainly aren't suitable places for the young people.
Well, after you left, we got to talking about that idea of yours. Turning the place over to the kids on Friday nights and during the week just running a small show, local talent or something through dinner. And then on weekends, I could get a small musical combination to come down for dances.
Mm-hmm.
And if we handle it that way, we could easily afford to turn it over to the kids, well, almost free on their night to howl.
Oh, that sounds just fine, Dell. But, well, you need someone to run it. And if you can't do it...
We've got that problem licked, too. That's what I wanted to tell you about.
You have someone in mind who could manage the place?
Yeah. And this is going to surprise you. Lily wants to take over the job.
Lily?
Yeah. Well, that's the way it struck me at first. I never thought Lily would be willing to leave the city and live in a small town like this.
Well, it does seem odd. Not that I don't think she'd do a good job of it.
Oh, no, I'm not worried about that at all. Lily's very competent, you know.
Yes?
And the gimmick is, she could handle part of the entertainment during the week, too. During a couple of songs and maybe a dance or two. Ought to work out just fine.
Oh, Dell, I'm so pleased.
Oh, I thought you would be.
When do you think we could get started?
Well, Lily's very anxious. Now, what I figured was, Lily and I can leave tomorrow morning. She can wind up her affairs in Chicago and get her things together and so on.
Mm-hmm.
Then she'll come back as soon as she can and get underway. The room at the hotel will need some decorating to make it attractive. Lily can get started on that as soon as she gets back.
Oh, I just can't tell you how happy I am about it, Dell. You know, Peggy will be, too, having Lily here.
Yeah, it'll be good for both of them. Well, here we are. There's Peggy on the porch. She must have been looking for us.
Hello.
Well, hello, dear. Did you think I was never coming home?
Well, I got sort of worried. I was afraid the rose would get too done. You know how Randy likes it all pink through the middle.
Well, it ought to be just right. It's only 2:15.
Well, I wasn't sure. The browner it got to looking, the paler I felt. Dell, I haven't even said hello. What with this little domestic crisis?
How are you today, dear?
Well, I'll run along in and see how things are. You stay out here and talk to Dell, Peggy.
All right, Aunt Mary. Let me know when you need me.
I
will. Shall we sit in the porch swing, Dell?
All right. Say, doesn't it look nice?
Oh, I just recovered the cushions. I'm quite proud of myself.
Well, you should be. Well, this time tomorrow, I'll be on my way back to Chicago. I kind of hate to leave.
Too bad you have to, Dell. But you'll be coming back before long, won't you?
I don't know.
I wish you could. You see, my wedding's going to be in about a month. I'd like you to be here.
Your wedding.
Oh, now don't you go telling me that it just seems yesterday since I was in Bobby's
Well,
socks.
that's not what I was thinking. But now that you mention it...
Dell, please.
Okay, hon. I saw Bill Meade a while ago.
You did? Where did you see him?
He was at David Bowman's when I picked your aunt up.
Oh.
He's a swell guy.
Oh, yes. Bill's very sweet. I'm awfully fond of him.
I've got a feeling he's awfully fond of you, too.
Well, about the wedding, Dell. My wedding to Nicholas Dorn. I do hope you'll be able to be here.
Peggy,
Oh, I'm being paged. Yes, Aunt Mary?
you can go in and set the table now, dear.
Oh, right away.
Well, Dell, I can sit down for a minute now.
Oh, here, Mary. There's plenty of room by me.
No, thanks. This battered old rocker is my favorite. You know, Lefty and I always sit out here summer evenings.
Oh, it must be nice. Mary, Peggy just invited me to her wedding.
Did she?
Yeah. She's really set on marrying this Dawn, I guess.
I'm afraid so. I've done what I could, but... Well, of course, it's not as if Nicholas weren't a fine boy. And he's deeply in love with Peggy, too.
Oh, sure, I don't doubt that for a minute.
And he knows how Peggy feels about him.
You mean he knows Peggy isn't in love with him? Because I'd swear she isn't. Well, just from little things I've noticed when I talk to her.
You're right about that, Dell. Yes, she's been perfectly honest with Nicholas.
And he still wants to go ahead?
Yes.
Oh, goodness.
That's what makes it so difficult for me, too. Oh, to interfere, you might say.
Yeah. I can see it would.
You see, Dell, Peggy's thinking is right in so many ways. She realizes that being a wife and later a mother is the role that she's best fitted for. She wants a home of her own and everything that goes with it. And with Bill having this child, intending to get custody of it if he possibly can.
She doesn't want to marry him and then bring up Kit Calvert's child. That's her reason, isn't it?
Yes, that's it. And from her standpoint, it's natural.
Oh, Mary, if only you could persuade her to wait, not to marry Dawn right away.
But, Dell, I've tried my level best. I can't forbid her to, and that would be the only way.
Well, even so, maybe you should forbid her, if it's for her own good.
But, Dell, I'm surprised you feel so strongly about it.
I do, though, Mary. If you only knew how important I think it is. You can't let her marry Nicholas.
Puzzled, Aunt Mary wondered why it was that Dell Shipley was so affected by Peggy's wedding plans. She couldn't know what Dell was thinking.
That snapshot Bill showed me of the baby. When I saw that, I knew the child isn't his. It's really Lisa's. It all fits in with the story she told me. Oh, only I hadn't promised her I'd keep it a secret. But maybe I can persuade Lisa to tell the truth. In time to keep Peggy from marrying a man she doesn't love. Lefty's daughter. I can't stand by and let her make such a terrible mistake. I can't.
Yes, Dell, you realize what a catastrophe it would be were Peggy to marry Nicholas Dorn, not loving him, simply because of the baby boy Bill Meade believes to be his. You, Dell, know that the child is not Bill's at all. Only you can bring out the truth. But can you do it in time? Now for our story. Aunt Mary Lane paused in the hallway outside the office of Angus McKillop, her old friend and Bill Meade's attorney. She lifted her hand to knock and then paused with an amused little smile.
You take the high road and I'll take the low road and I'll be in Scotland before you. For me and my... Come in. Come in.
Oh, well, hello, Angus. Oh, don't stop singing, Angus. You have a nice, strong voice.
Yeah, it's strong enough. Hey, you're right there. How are you, Mary Lane?
Just fine. Mind if I talk to you for a minute or two?
Oh, not at all. Rest your bones, Mary. Sit down.
Oh, thank you.
Well, what is it? You have that look about you.
I have. What look is that, Angus?
The look of a woman with a purpose. Something she wants.
Oh?
I might say it's a look to put the fear of the Almighty in a man's soul.
Why, Angus,
To hear you talk, one would think you'd suffered very rough treatment from women.
Well, maybe I have. Now then, suppose you tell me what you came for. I know you must have something in mind. You're much too busy a woman to be dropping in just to pass the time of day.
You're right, Angus. I have something I'd like to discuss with you. It's about Bill Meade.
You might have known.
I'm very interested in what happens to that boy.
Yes, so am I, Mary. He's a good lad. Young, but time will take care of that.
Of course it will. However, even though he's young, his intentions are sound. I'd like to see him have a chance to do what he believes. And as you know, he's run up against a problem which is more than he can handle alone.
You're talking about his young son trying to get custody of the bairn?
Yes. You see, when I talked to you before...
I remember. The day we met in the park. Well, Mary, I told you then how I looked at the matter, but I tried. We had our petition when Kit Calvert got a divorce. We tried. And we lost.
Yes, I know. But, Angus, don't you...
The thing of it is, Mary, you don't know enough about these things. You weren't in court when the case was tried. This attorney, Ben Calvert, brought down from Chicago, was a smooth man. But even if he hadn't been, they would have won custody. We hadn't a thing on our side.
Still, I can't believe there isn't some way.
Well, that's just the trouble, there isn't. You wouldn't want me to manufacture the evidence out of whole cloth now, would you?
Oh, no, of course not.
Well, that's what I thought. The fact is, that's the only way we could hope to win, because we have to have concrete evidence that the ex-Mrs. Meade's an unfit mother. That's why I hate to see the lad wasting his good time and energy, breaking his heart, too, over such a hopeless affair.
I'd feel the way you do, Angus, except that I can't bring myself to believe it is completely hopeless. I've been wondering about Miss Thorndyke.
Thorndyke? Who's she?
Why, she's the young woman who takes care of the child.
Oh, the nurse, the governess.
Yes. She's a fine, intelligent person, from what I know of her.
Yeah, I have no doubt she is. But she's no help to us.
Are you sure, Angus? Isn't it possible that she might be willing to testify, take the stand if the case were reopened? Kit has said she wished she'd never had the baby. I believe Bill about that. Also that she doesn't seem to have a real mother's love for him. And Miss Thorndyke must know those things.
It's possible. But the girl has a job to think about. She'd not last very long with Ben Calvert if she took it into her head to testify against his daughter.
I know that. But somehow, after talking to her a few times, I have the feeling she might be willing to risk it. If she thought the child would benefit. She's very fond of that baby.
That may be. But even if she did, we'd be taking a long chance. Basing our case on the testimony of one witness, wouldn't be enough. Mary, why don't you forget the whole thing?
I can't do that.
Look, Mary Lane, can't you get it through that fine head of yours at all? If this child's well taken care of, not being neglected in any of his wants, then according to law, his mother's not neglecting him. Of course, if she'd...
She'd what, Angus?
Well, if there was some other reason, something which Miss Calvert happened to have done, which didn't look quite proper in the eyes of the law, it might be another story in that case.
I see.
But there isn't a shred of evidence which points to anything of the sort.
No? And if you're sure you can't look into the case more thoroughly...
Thoroughly? Oh, the Lord Harry, I'd like to know how I could look into it more thoroughly than I've done.
Angus, I admit your reasons are all very sensible. At least they sound logical. But it seems like in this case, the laws of human behavior, the laws of what is right and wrong in the sense of the spirit, have very little to do with what the law means to an attorney.
Perhaps it seems that way in many cases. But the law cannot be founded on opinion. It has to have evidence, which can be put down in black and white and can be proved.
I'm just thinking of that boy. Thinking how he's worried about that baby of his. He's worried that his son is to be brought up in Ben Calvert's house. In Ben Calvert's way of doing things. You know Bill's right. And when something's right, there must be some way to prove it.
You'd like me to work some magic. Make it all come out all right.
Not magic, Angus. I just want you to do what I know you want to do in your heart. You're a just man. I want you to stand up and defend justice as you see it. And I've no doubt that you will.
Mary Lane, between you with your rights and wrongs, your sorrow and your wrath, and that boy with his hopeful look, I might have known I couldn't hold out. All right. I'll do the best I can. I'll keep at it.
Oh, Angus.
But I make no promises. I expect nothing at all. Neither should you.
If you're really working on it, I can't help but expect the best, Angus.
No. But I see I wouldn't have a moment's peace from now till doomsday if I didn't give in to you. So...
Thank you, Angus. I promise you one thing. I'm sure you'll never regret listening to your conscience and trying to help that boy out.
I was under the impression that it was you I'd been listening to, Mary Lane, rather than my conscience.
Perhaps I've been the voice of your conscience. Well, I must go now. And thank you, Angus. You're a fine man.
After Aunt Mary left, Angus sat looking dolefully into space, wondering how he could possibly live up to her faith in him. He roused from his reverie as the mail slot clicked and the afternoon letter slid through.
Probably old bills and advertisements. Let's see now. What's this? Dear Mr. McKillop, regarding one of your clients, I believe I have some information which might be of interest to you. This client is Bill Meade. If you will be at the square opposite the courthouse on the north side tomorrow evening at 9:30, you will hear something which may prove very valuable to you in this case. There's no signature. No, it's the looniest thing I ever heard of. The north side of the courthouse square at night. Like a cheap detective novel. Well, they'll not make a fool of Angus McKillop. I won't go. And yet, maybe I'd better. As Mary Lane says, you can never tell. It might just turn out to be worth something.
Angus McKillop studied the typewritten letter thoughtfully, looked at the Wakefield postmark on the envelope. Perhaps the custody suit of Meade versus Meade was not, after all, an open and shut case. Aunt Mary might be right. Perhaps there was hope of winning the case. But who could the author of the mysterious letter be? Now for our story. Dell Shipley and Lily Devon had just said goodbye to Aunt Mary and her household after spending the weekend in Wakefield. Now, with Dell at the wheel of her car, the nightclub owner and the young entertainer turn onto the main highway which leads to Chicago.
I kind of hate to be leaving, don't you, Dell? It's been a nice weekend.
Oh, it had its good moments. Of course, it had some bad ones, too, for me.
You mean Lefty?
Mm-hmm.
I know how you feel, Dell. I suppose you'd rather not talk about it.
Oh, I don't mind talking it over with you, Lily. After all, you know the whole story.
Sure. I did sort of wonder what happened that night you went out to Lefty's place. Was he mad because you went to see him?
No, I wouldn't say he was mad exactly. He was just... Well, anyway, he wasn't interested.
Oh, it's tough, Dell.
Yeah. And it wasn't as if I was asking too much of him either. I only wanted him to stop holding this grudge against me, to forget bygones and be friendly at least.
Hmm? What did he say?
He said it was no use, that it wouldn't work out.
I see. Well, I guess it's the same routine men always use when they want to split up. Cut off clean, the wound heals faster. All that stuff.
Oh, he didn't put it quite like that. But that's about what it adds up to. Anyway, he keeps saying he can't forget that I was going to tell Peggy he's her father. But I was going to break my word to him.
Well, but you wouldn't have thought of telling Peggy, except it seemed the only way to make her understand. The only way to save Lefty from being convicted for that murder when you knew he hadn't done it.
Sure. But Lefty doesn't think about that side of it. He doesn't give a darn about my reason. It was because I loved him and didn't want him to be hurt.
Oh, it's a darn shame, Dell.
Well, hon, it's not your funeral. But you can see why I couldn't take Mary up on that scheme of hers about my coming down to run the supper club. Or rather, the idea I got at first, that a deal like that might work out. Lefty would have been furious. But as long as you're willing to take over, why...
It's funny. I'm looking forward to it, Dell. I figure it'll mean a lot to me. Sort of a step upward.
Upward? Lily, haven't you been doing all right?
Oh, sure, Dell. Working for you at the Peacock's been a big step. After what I'd been doing before. I appreciate it, Dell.
Well, you certainly paid off. It'll be tough to replace you.
You won't have any trouble. It's not as if I was B. Lily or somebody.
Well, just the same, you're darn good. You know, it's kind of hard for me to picture you in a town like Wakefield. What'll you do with yourself? No place to go.
Oh, that won't bother me, Dell. After all, my evenings will be taken care of running the place.
Well, I've always thought of you as strictly for the bright lights, or maybe I should say that's how I figured you thought of yourself.
Maybe I think I need a change.
Maybe so. And I'm wondering why.
Why? I don't know. Does there have to be a reason?
Well, hon, when a girl like you suddenly begins to act different, talk different, there's usually a reason.
What do you mean, Dell?
Well, just that it looks as if there was a man in the story somewhere.
Oh.
I thought maybe Randy Lane put the idea in your head.
What idea?
Oh, living in the country has a lot of advantages. Well, how about it, Lily? Am I on the track at all?
Well, I don't know about being on the track because I don't know quite where you're going, Dell. As far as Randy's concerned, we did talk for a while one day. He gets my goat a little.
He does he?
Yeah. He gave me this routine about what I'm really like inside, according to him.
Oh? Well, what's his theory?
He seems to think I'm really just a simple country girl at heart.
That's interesting. Maybe been trying to fool me. What else did he say?
Oh, he thinks I'm full of ideals and such.
Well, maybe he's not so far off at that, as far as ideals go. Of course, you put on this act of being hard-boiled, but...
That's not exactly what he means, though. It's... Oh, nuts. I can't explain it. Anyway, what does Randy Lane know about me? He's only seen me a couple of times.
Sometimes you can learn a lot about a person in a short space of time.
Well, I wish you wouldn't try to dope me out. I'm just me. Whatever that means. He thinks he knows what it means, but he's probably way off. If I don't know the answer, why should he?
I don't know, hon. Maybe Randy knows you better than you know yourself. I had a little talk with him about Peggy, and he seemed to understand her pretty well.
Well, she's his cousin. He ought to understand her. And by the way, Dell, do you think you'll be able to get down for Peggy's wedding?
I don't know. I'm hoping to heaven there won't be one.
No wedding? Well, but why, Dell? Peggy certainly made up her mind about it. And this Nicholas Dorn's a very nice guy.
Well, that's not enough to make a successful, happy marriage, Lily. You've been around enough to know better than that.
But, well, Peggy ought to know what she's doing.
Maybe so. But that wedding's all wrong, Lily. I know it.
Aunt Mary doesn't think it's a good idea either, does she?
Mary's very much against it. But you can't forbid Peggy, and besides, with Lefty pulling for it.
You mean Lefty sold on Peggy in this Dorn?
He sure is. We practically had a fight over it.
Oh, Dell. Now, why did you go and argue with him? You know how stubborn Lefty is. And he's so unreasonable where Peggy's concerned. You probably only got yourself into more hot water. I know you had hopes when you came to Wakefield. You thought maybe you could get that guy to understand, and then you have to go and argue about Peggy. That's crazy, Dell.
Yeah, but it was something I had to do, Lily. When you know a thing's wrong, you can't just stand around and watch it happen. You got to do something.
But, Dell, what makes you so sure it is wrong for Peggy to marry Nicholas Dorn?
I can't tell you my reason, Lily. But believe me, I know what I'm talking about.
Dell Shipley would have liked to tell Lily what those reasons were, but she couldn't. She promised Lisa Fenner to keep Lisa's story a secret. Now, as they drove on in silence, Dell was thinking,
Lily's right in a way. It didn't do me any good with Lefty, arguing with him about Peggy, begging him to talk her into postponing the wedding. Maybe if it hadn't been for that, he would have felt differently about my coming down here. Now I've just got him riled up all over again. Funny, the way Peggy's always stood between us. Not that it's her fault. Well, it just turned out that way. Still, I had to do what I did. Peggy won't be happy with Nicholas. She's in love with Bill. The only thing standing in the way is Lisa's baby. The kid Bill thinks is his and Kit's. If only I can persuade Lisa to tell the truth before it's too late.
yes, Dell, you really do want to help Lefty Larkin's daughter, Peggy, who still doesn't know that Aunt Mary's old friend and helper, the man who has watched her grow up since she was a little girl, is really her own father. But I wonder, Dell, if Lisa Fenner will be willing to face the consequences of having relinquished her baby son to Kit Meade.